Hello students, welcome to Lab B1. We're going to introduce you to parallel circuits, and we're going to learn about measuring total resistance and total voltage and total current. Now, a parallel circuit is a circuit where all the one side of the components are all attached to one side of the source, and the other end of the components are all tied to the other side of the source. So we call this parallel, or sometimes I refer to as parallel only circuits. So we're going to look at building these circuits here. As you can see, these are two very similar circuits. We're using 3 resistors, and let's take a look here. So we're looking at these 3 resistors, and we have 2 circuits, so just pay attention when you're building these circuits, as I've got 6-5 applied to both these circuits. In this first circuit I have resistor 1, 2, and 3. The second one I have resistors 3, 4, and 5. So just pay attention when you're building that. Now, we've gone away from demonstrating wiring diagrams in your lab book, so we're assuming that you have enough hands-on that you can sort of interpret some of these yourself. I do want to show you a couple of different ways that you can look at building a parallel circuit, and one of those ways is right here. Let me take a look here, and I'll move this up where we can see this. And let's take a look a little bit closer if we can. Now, if you look at this circuitry here, is that I've used the bus bar at the very top. You can see that I've used the red bus line here, very top. So all the tops are connected together. So if you look at this tops, this is the top of R1, and the top of R2, and the top of R3, and they're connected to another line here that's going to end up going to our power supply. And then at the bottom here is that I've got jumpers, and these jumpers are going to the bus line. I've just picked the blue bus line here at the bottom. Doesn't matter which one you pick. And then this end here is going to go to the other end of the power supply. So remember, when we're measuring resistors, we measure them alone. So what I would do is I would have a circuit. I would have to set this up, is I would get my resistors in one of these configurations. You can build it like this. This is one way. I'll show you another way in just a second. And then I'm just going to hook my ohm meter up to it. And remember, you need to refer to the theory videos to understand how parallel circuits work. So make sure you refer to those theory videos to understand how this works. And then if you see this, as I put this together, and I've got 633 ohms in this circuit for circuit 1. And so that's one way to build it. Another way to build it is it takes less jumper wires to build it this way. Is that if I make it look like the schematic there, as I build this circuit and I have these 3 resistors, they're all in the same set of holes, and I'm using the red wire and the black wire to attach to my source here. And again, I'm going to just measure total resistance. Remember, you have to measure your total resistance without anything else attached to it, so your power supply is not in your circuit yet. Okay, and then there's my resistance here I'm looking at here in this particular circuit. So you want to take a look at that and decide which configuration you want to do. Now remember, in this, we're measuring resistors alone, then we put them in our circuit to measure total resistance. Then we're going to take our power supply. So here's my power supply. I'm going to attach my power supply here, and we're going to apply a 6.5 volts, and I'm going to come measure this 6.5 volts. And so I'm just measuring across my components here, one at the top, one at the bottom, and then there's my 6.5. So when I measure voltage at one place, I measure every place, and then I want to measure total current. And again, the technique I use when I'm measuring total current, and not individual current, is I set my meter up to measure total current. I disconnect one end of the circuit. I put the same positive leads together, or you could do the 2 negative leads together, and the circuit goes between the 2 other leads. And then you set this up, and now you're measuring current. So that's how you'd measure current. And that gets you through the lab, I think, for the most part. You may have a couple labs you need to look at, answering any questions you might have, and you want to go ahead and fill out your paperwork here. I think we have this lab here. So we've got a couple of circuits here, and then we're going to go take a look at doing the measurements here, and you'll learn how to do that in lab. Ask your instructor on how to do some of these techniques in there, and then you have some questions that you'll need to answer for this lab just to make sure you understand how parallel works. If you have any questions, check with your instructor, and we'll see you in lab.